Have you ever been to a masquerade ball? I have been to a little kid's masquerade ball. It was for I think it was a kindergarten class. I'm pretty sure it was kindergarten class. And so we wore these little paper masks that we got to create ourselves. And it was so much fun. It was just what happened when we put on the little mask and we knew who everyone was. And yet we could step into this character we wanted to be. I was walking down Party City last week, and I love walking around Party City. I love seeing all the decorations. I like the inspiration, and there was a whole row for a masquerade ball, and I'm talking like the masks and the cloaks and the different, like the scepters. Like you can, like, okay, I guess we're going to be royal. Masquerade people. But the whole idea of this is that it's a way to step into a different identity. You get to, for a short time, put on a mask that conceals your true identity. And even if it doesn't conceal it, then you get to pretend, you get to be a different persona for a short time. And this had me thinking. We talked about imposter syndrome and overwhelm the last a couple of podcasts ago, and I got a lot of messages about it. Asking me, because one is I took a different perspective of, if you have imposter syndrome, or if that's something that you think that you have, it's because you're awesome, right? It's because you're awesome, and it's not because you're not capable, because you're not worthy. It's actually an indication that you are. But that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to talk about these masks that we wear. And well, before we go any further, my name is Tammy. I'm your host of the Full Weight of Joy podcast, and on YouTube, if that's how you're watching or listening. I am so excited you're here. I love doing this. I love talking about these topics. And let me tell you why. I know from experience that we can go along to get along, that we have these natural tendencies. We have this natural persona, or this natural personality that shines. And so many times we do things that we're expected to do. We do things that we think we need to do. We do things based on our instincts versus even what we want. And so I created this podcast almost 4 years ago. Like, it will be 4 years in January, and I am so excited. And I need to plan something. I don't know what I'll do for the 4-year anniversary, because that's a huge milestone. And I'm super proud of myself, and I'm also very grateful that you are still here with me on this journey. Because as I grow, and my whole goal is to help you grow as well, and not just in the, like, we need to be better, but it's, if we understand how God wired us, if we understand our strengths, our weaknesses, our natural tendencies, our core avoidances, what motivates us, if we understand the why behind the why, if we get down to business on who God created us to be and what are we called to do, this whole idea of fulfillment and joy and loving our life, we just get to step into it. God created us uniquely. He called us for a purpose. He made these grand plans for us, plans to make us to prosper, plans for us to be successful in whatever your definition of success is. And so this podcast, I just want to help you start to shift your perspective a little bit to see how God wired you. What's your unique value proposition? What's your zone of genius? What's your secret sauce that makes you you and can elevate your service? Because I know if you're listening to this podcast, you have a heart of service. You would not listen if you didn't. You would not listen to this podcast if you did not want to know more about how God wired you and what your purpose is. Because I don't think I'm that entertaining to keep you at the edge of your seat with my enthralling stories. But what I believe you're here for is because there's a calling on your life, and you know that God made you different. That when we ask ourselves the question of who am I now, we're really asking God, what do you want from me? And so today, as we dive into this idea of imposter syndrome and these masks that we wear, then I want you to set down any guilt and any shame. And I actually want you to kind of think of this in, like laugh a little bit. And I've created these personas. I've created these characters, if you will, from, well, personal experience. But I won't name my name. From my friends, my clients, from this over a decade that I've been doing this. I've created these personas, and to help you kind of identify with one or more. You get bonus points. All right. If I have 5 different masks, these imposter syndrome masks, there are a lot more, but these are the ones that I see most often. And there may be ones that I've experienced or I've helped my clients work through as well. Maybe not, not to call any names here, but I want to talk to you about these. Because if we allow ourselves to stay in this imposter syndrome that we already talked about, how it's really an indication that we're awesome, that we are stepping into something God has for us, and that, and we know He does not call the equipped, He equips the called. And if you're called, if God calls you to it, you best do it. All right. So let's get into this, see what's stopping us. Let's see what masks that we wear, and see which one relates to you. And then I want to tell you a little bit of how it looks, and then also give you one easy thing you can do to solve it, to basically an action step or way to look at it in order to step out of this overwhelm, this imposter syndrome that we are plagued with, because it's not for us. All right, so let's go in. So I'm going to tell you, so they're called the perfectionist, the expert, the soloist, the natural genius, and the superwoman or supermom. Okay, so I'm going to start with Sarah. Sarah has built a successful career, but every time she finishes a project, all she sees is the minor details that she could have done better. Her boss and clients rave about her work, but she brushes off the praise, thinking they only knew how much better this could have been. Sarah's nights are filled with double checking, redoing tasks because she feels falling short of her impossible standards. So some of the traits here for the perfectionist is set unrealistically high expectations for yourself. They feel like they're a failure if they don't achieve this unrealistic definition of perfection. They always feel it could be better. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Tammy, if you were an Enneagram 1, you're like, okay, this is like every Enneagram 1. We're always trying to be better. Yes, and yes, this may be some of the things that over my course of my life, I have experienced and things that I've dealt with, but also some of my friends too. But it manifests in you're constantly focusing on the flaws, your shortcomings, the mistakes. You have struggling with delegating, and feels like nothing is ever good enough. So this is the perfectionist mask. This is the imposter syndrome that we see here, is the fact that you're never worthy you're never capable of getting it right or good enough. And so the solution here is simple. It really is. It's focus on progress over perfection and celebrate small wins. Nothing new, nothing that is egregious, nothing that is, that's not the right word, nothing that is transformational. And then it is, though. When I started focusing on my small wins, my daily small wins and gratitude, and those I write separately. I have my things I'm thankful for, and then I'm also celebrating my small wins. When I started doing that, this whole idea of being worthy or being capable started to go away, because I could see no, I don't know everything. And this perfectionist and Sarah, who I'm describing here, she doesn't even need to know everything. That's why you have a team. That's why you have God. Like, we're not expected to know it all. And so just focus on the progress, the small steps over the perfection. Perfection is not our goal anyway. It's not possible. All right. So the next one is the expert. So I'm going to talk about Emily, the overprepared mom. She's the mom that everyone turns to for advice. She's also the one that everyone turns to get things done. Whether it's about parenting hacks, meal planning, school activities, she's constantly researching the latest trends in education and reading parenting books. But she still feels like she's falling short. When her child's teacher asks her to lead a workshop for other parents, Emily hesitates, thinking, what if they ask something I don't know? And they realize, what if they realize that I'm not as knowledgeable as I appear or as they think? So do you know an Emily? Do you know this mom who, like, she is just naturally gifted, and she has this air about her, and yet she never feels like the expert she is. And yet she is already the expert, and she doesn't need to strive. Like, it comes naturally, and she can still work to learn it. Like, we don't need to know everything. We have this great thing called the internet that we can learn anything at any time. You want to learn how to speak French? Go to the internet. If you want to learn how to change a car tire, go to the internet. If you want to learn how to create a funnel or start a business, go to the internet. Like, we have the internet. We also have people who can even help us faster than the internet can, just not at 24/7. But some of the traits that this expert holds is they feel like they must know everything before they're credible or qualified. Before they're equipped, they have to know everything about everything. And it's not even possible. Again, like that perfectionistic tendencies. Perfection is not possible. And knowing everything about everything, that's exhausting. And why it's not even necessary. And so this manifests in hesitation, procrastination to take action until they've mastered a skill or topic. And afraid to admit when they don't know something, because they're afraid that you're going to see them as a fraud. You're going to see them and be like, oh, yeah, she's not as good as she thinks. And can I be honest? There are people who are going to think negatively, who are going to want you to fail or want you to fall short. Those people are not our concern, because it's really saying about them, not about us. It's hurt people. And so they want to focus on other people's flaws so they don't look at their own. The next one, the soloist. All right, the soloist. Oh, sorry. What's the solution? What's the solution for this expert is embrace learning and growth as a journey. It's not a requirement for worthiness. God calls us to be worthy. He gives us his worthiness. We don't get it on our own. So we get to rest in that. So learning and growth. If someone asks you a question, have you ever asked someone a question and they didn't know the answer? You know the person who's making it up, and you also know the person who's like, it's a really good question. I'm going to find out and I'm going to get back to you. Be the second person, because I know that if they say that to me, that means they're looking it up so I don't have to. And two, it's like, oh, this is another conversation I get to have with them. This will be fun. It's not like, oh, I knew it. She does not know everything. I can't trust what she says. No, that's not it at all. But I know that she will find the right answer. I can trust that. Okay, the soloist. The soloist, Mia. She runs her own business and is a pro at getting things done, checking things off the list. You see her doing things online. She's got all the reels. She's got all the posts. She is after it, and she gets it all done on her own. She avoids asking for help because she's worried that people might think she's incapable. Even when she's drowning in work, she refuses to delegate, convincing herself that if I don't do it myself, it won't be done right. Okay, so I won't give away the next podcast episode, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it here, because we're going to talk about 3 things to stop doing right now and 3 things to start doing to step into your genius, to step into your calling. I haven't come up with a name for this podcast yet, but I already wrote the outline, and it does include stop doing it all yourself. Okay. So that's a little bonus. Like, come and listen to it because it's going to be good. But Mia feels like she has to be everything. How many times have you had a project and you didn't ask for the help you needed simply because you didn't want people to think you couldn't handle it? I know that I've had jobs where asking for help or being seen as incapable is one of the first things that get you demoted, gets you first things taken off of a project, or someone else given something in front of you. And I know that that's a terrible place to be. And so when you were running your own business, like, what are your goals? Did you want a business so it can run your life? Or did you want this side gig, this ministry, this whatever your thing is, so you can have the life that you want? Having a business that you want is part of that. And so it manifests. The traits are, they believe they must do everything themselves to prove their value, to prove that they are, well, this goes into also the expert and they know it all and the perfectionistic tendencies. Like they do it because they can do it best. They don't want to be seen as incapable and they want it done right. And so I just better do it myself. So it manifests in struggles to ask for help or collaboration, viewing needing support as a sign of weakness. I'm just going to ask you this. If someone asks you for help, is your first thought as, man, she is so weak. Look at her asking for help. No, it's not. When I'm asked for help, it makes me so happy. It is like, it brings joy to my heart because I get to serve. I get to help. I get to help maybe someone else's life easier. Well, let me tell you, the flip side is you asking for help from someone else also helps them feel worthy and capable and loved and needed and wanted and all the things. If you don't feel like someone is weak asking you for help, stop thinking that it's weak for you to ask for help. There's no double standards here, ladies. All right. The blessing we get from asking for help, like we can give other people a blessing by letting them help. Let other people have the blessing. Just because you know that you want it as well. You want to be asked for help. And so the solution here is recognize the strength in community. God talks about a strand of three it can't be broken, and like going with your brother, like pick a partner and go with it. Though I am a solo entrepreneur, I have my business. I am the business owner, and I do the main, like I am the leader in my business. I have a VA who helps me with tasks. I also have a mastermind of amazing women who I meet with weekly that also we share ideas. We help each other because we all have different strengths. And so it's like, oh, let me find that out for you. Oh, this is here. Let me send you this article I wrote. I don't go it alone, even though I'm a solopreneur. And neither should you. Okay, so the next one, the natural genius. We're talking about Rachel, who is the naturally good mom, who Rachel has always praised for how easily she picks up new skills, whether it's cooking, crafting, organizing birthday parties. Now her oldest child is struggling in school, and Rachel doesn't know how to help. Instead of reaching out for advice or resources, she feels paralyzed, thinking, if I can't figure this out on my own, maybe I'm not a good mom after all. We've all had those moments where we can teach our kids, we can help our kids, our spouses, our friends. We can only do so much when it comes to somebody else. There's free will. So your kids are not going to pick the right choice all the time. Your kids are not going to do everything that you think that they should do, even though you know it's best for them. And I'm speaking from experience here. And I'm speaking, having a teenage, having an 11th grader, how we're looking for, like, let's start making decisions for the future. Or maybe not making decisions, but let's start, like, what are our options? We all do things that question, maybe I'm not a good mom after all. People who aren't good moms don't ask themselves this. So that's the sign right there that it's because you care so much. Imposter syndrome does not show up if you don't care. And so as Rachel is this natural genius where it's motherhood comes so easy for her. And we all know those moms, but they also struggle. Like it's okay to struggle. Struggle is part of life. And so the traits kind of feel like a fraud if they don't succeed effortlessly on the first try. Parenthood, that's why we have multiple kids, right? Because we don't get it right the first time. Heck, we probably don't get it right the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I have friends who have like 10, 11, 12 kids, and I look and I'm like, man, they've got it all together. And then I listen to their struggle. I don't judge them for it. It just reminds me that we're all human and I can support them. Maybe not in parenting, but maybe I can support them in her specifically in a different way. Give her some time, give her some help, give her a meal, like take something off her plate, like for a short time. There's other ways to support. Just because you don't have it all together doesn't mean you're not a good mom, or that just because not everything comes naturally to you doesn't mean you're not a good mom. So it manifests and avoids challenges that require significant effort, believing that their worth is tied to their innate talent. If I have to work at it, then then I'm not actually good at it. We're called to grow. We're called to stretch ourselves. We're called to get out of our comfort zone. If you don't stretch and grow, and if you don't fall, then what do we need God for? Like, he's there. He wants us to bring, and he did give you a natural genius. Let me just preface this. Let me just talk about this for a moment, because this is what I find with my clients is we go and we discover what your natural genius is. We've all got it. And we don't have to worry about, like, it's so great once you figure out what you're naturally good at, because then you don't have to worry about that anymore. Because you can see that that's a gift that God's given you. You get to lean into it. You do get to find books or more, there's other people who are further along. You can find out what they're doing or what they're doing with it. Doesn't mean that you can set it and forget it, but it's natural. And we can still fall. And we can still be naturally good at it. It could still be our zone of genius. It could still be our secret sauce. It can still be what makes us us. And so the last one here, so I'm going to talk about Olivia. Olivia juggles a demanding job, PTA meetings, and side projects like a pro, or so it seems. She works long hours and says yes to every opportunity to prove her worth. But behind the scenes, she's exhausted, she's overwhelmed, and she's thinking, if I stop, people will realize that I'm not as good as they think. And not as good as they think. When we keep searching for external validation, when we're trying to reach other people's expectations, which we haven't even defined what their expectations is. So we just add these like more to it. But this superwoman, the trait feels like they need to juggle everything perfectly and constantly prove that they can do it all. And this manifests in burnout, overcommitting, over-delivering, beyond what they're capable of. And they're over-delivering to compensate for a feeling of inadequacy. They feel like they're never going to be good enough. They see Rachel over there who's killing at being a mom and living in her genius. And then like, man, I need to be a good mom too. Then they see Mia, who's a businesswoman, and she's a pro at getting things done. And poor Olivia is like, well, I have my job. I'm also a PTA mom, and I'm on like several boards. I work at my church, and I can I like to do these side projects. I like to refurnish furniture. And so it seems like she's got it all together, but she's exhausted trying to prove that she's good enough. And so this is, I think I missed the solution for the natural genius. Okay, I'll come back to that, and I apologize. I have it in my notes in order, and yet I still missed it. See, not perfect. I don't have it all. I have it literally written down in order, and I still missed it. but it's okay because you know what? You're still listening and I will give it to you and then it will be fine. We don't have to get it right. We don't have to get it perfect. We don't have to have it look a certain way. And so when we feel like this superwoman, when we feel like Olivia, and there are times that I felt like Olivia, that I felt like if I don't appear to have it all together, then people are going to know how tired I am. So I put on a brave face and I do all the things. And when I stop to ask myself, what is it all for? I realized that the relationship I wanted with my kids, it's not even there. It's not as deep as I wanted. And so the manifest says burnout from overcommitting and over-delivering to compensate for feelings of inadequacy. You're not inadequate. God has called you. He is equipping you. And your natural zone of genius is right there. You don't have to do everything to be worthy. You're already worthy. And so the solution for this one is to set healthy boundaries and redefine success beyond constant productivity. Redefine success based on what you want your life to look like. This is where having a house in the Hamptons may not be what you want, but you want to be able to sit and read on a rainy Sunday afternoon for all day. That may be what success looks like for you, that you can just set everything aside and spend a cozy day reading. That sounds amazing. You get to define success. So when you set healthy boundaries and redefine success based on not on productivity, but on what your outcomes that you want, the life that you want, that's how you step out of imposter syndrome. Okay, so now the natural genius. Let me get us back in the frame of mind. We have Rachel, who's the naturally good mom, who avoids challenges that require significant effort because she believes her worth is tied to her innate, only what she's naturally gifted in. And so what we get to do here, the solution here is to reframe the challenges. We get to see them as opportunities to grow, to step in and strengthen skills over time. Even things we're good at can get better. And I'm a firm believer here that this is one reason why I use Clifton Strengths to discover our top 5 strengths. And then we pour more gas, we pour more energy, we pour more learning into those instead of the ones on the bottom, because someone else will cover those. And so our imposter syndrome is really because it's this mask that we wear because we feel inadequate. But if we really take these solutions to heart and we look and we decide that we're good enough because God called us to be good enough. He called us as good enough, and He is equipping, He is skilling us, He is putting us through the fire. We are going through all of the trials and this challenges that we need to go through in order to become who He's called us to be. Friend, if you identify with any of these masks, know that you're already good enough. Go back and listen to my podcast about dismantling overwhelm and imposter syndrome. That will help you as well to see that, again, it's an indicator that we get to gain clarity. We get to ask ourselves some questions and we get to see what's possible. And if this is something you struggle with, I'm here to help. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to help you discover what your zone of genius is, what you're naturally gifted at, your strengths, your talents, what your core motivations are, to help you discover the why behind the why. I have a special offer for 3 spots. And actually, I have 3 calls this next week. So I have a feeling that at least one of the spots are going to be taken. And so get on my calendar. Let's talk about which mask you're wearing. Let me help you see the limiting beliefs that are within it and what's actually true, what God says about you. Let me help you see your zone of genius. And let's work together. So getting on a call, there's no obligation there. The only obligation is for you to show up and be yourself. And just be real and don't try to wear the mask. Tell me what mask you're wearing so we can set it down. And then the next step is to let's figure out how we can work together. For 3 months, let's dismantle these Well, these masks. Let's dismantle the imposter syndrome. Let's look at what this overwhelmed state you're in, and how to step back and align it with your core values, your purpose, your why, how God wired you. Let's do that together, just one-on-one, you and I. And let's see what's possible. Could you imagine in 3 months what your life could look like if you no longer feel inadequate? If you know without a shadow of a doubt how God wired you, what's possible, what's on your heart, and how to make decisions based on how He wired you and what your calling is, and not what we feel like we have to show on the outside. Not based on where we're feeling inadequate or what expectations others hold for us, and not even those unrealistic expectations we add to ourselves. So that's what I want to do for you. All you need to do is get on my calendar and we can start looking at it. Again, this is my gift to you. We will talk about pulling off this mask and what's behind it. The link is in the show notes to get on my calendar. Please do it. And I can't wait. I can't believe that we are like a week away from Thanksgiving. Man, this year is going by so fast, and I've got some great episodes for you coming as we wrap up 2024 and we really step into 2025. I have officially chosen my word of the year, and I cannot wait to share it with you and the reason behind it, and ask you some questions, and hopefully to encourage you to start thinking about your word of the year. And so I just stay tuned, stay connected, keep reach out to me. Let's talk. And if you know your word of the year, I would love to send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram, and let's talk about it. And you can tell me why, because I find it fascinating. And as I'm looking, I have the whole list of podcast episodes for the rest of this year, and I'm just so excited because I don't want you to stay in the same place. And I know that when you know how God wired you, when you have that self-awareness and that self-leadership, you're able to get whatever you want and do whatever you want and step into that God dream and who He calls you to be. All right. I'm hoping that I convinced you enough to at least get open to the idea of asking yourself, who am I? And who did God create me to be? So get on my calendar. Let's chat. And I can't wait to start the rest of this year and start this new year with you. Well, with that, friend, choose joy until joy chooses you. And I will talk to you really soon. Bye.